It's that time, folks. It's Saturday. It's time for Fifth Street Sports, sport talk you can bet on. I'm Nick Geber, along with Frank. How are you doing, Frank Perez?
Oh.
Not Frank Lopez.
You're going to do that every show,
I
right?
can't resist it. And Nolan, Dalla, it's great to be with you. We'll be joined by Oklahoma Brian here, on and off over the show, because we actually have a lot of guests to get to today. By the way, big hello to our men and women in uniform listening around the world on American Forces. It's wonderful. It's a pleasure to speak with you. We always enjoy coming to you and hope you guys stay safe and come home soon. Also, obviously, big hello to everybody listening on an affiliate station of the Sports Byline SB Nation Radio Network. We'd love to hear from you. We can do that via Twitter at Fifth Street Sports or at Facebook at facebook.com/, Fifth Street Sports Talk. Our new website will be up on Monday. Exciting for everybody at
Yes,
Fifth Street
indeed.
Sports. And, of course, if you just want to get a megaphone, stick it out your window and yell, we just might hear you, so it's a good way to do it. We got a load of stuff to get to this show. Lots of stories out there. We will be talking with Charles J. here from BetAnySports.eu, who's an expert on the Kentucky Derby, because that will be running here in about a couple hours, I think. So if you have a last-minute bet you would like to place, this is a wonderful time to listen in and maybe get some information that you didn't know. We're going to be talking with Cody Longo about some e-gaming. We'll be talking to him in the second hour. We're also going to be talking about NFL season win totals. We're going to be talking about the Champions League, the final set, as well as the Europa League. So much stuff to get to here, guys. Fifth Street Sports, Sports Byline, SB Nation Radio. Once again, Twitter is at Fifth Street Sports. We are going to have to leave you here in a minute and take a little break. But in the meantime, want to make sure that you remember, if you want to place a bet, the best way to do it, go to betanysports.eu. If you use the affiliate code Fifth Street in the little box there, you will get a wonderful bonus, 50% bonus on your deposit, up to $1,000. Those are real dollars, Frank. You could do a lot with $1,000.
Oh, yeah. And it's reduced juice.
And reduced juice. We can talk about what that means if you don't know yet, coming up. So for me, Nick, and we have Frank, and we have Nolan, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back in just 3 minutes. So make sure you stay with us here on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. This is Fifth Street Sports.
Can somebody lend me $1,000?
Remember, speaking of Rodney Dangerfield, my
Neat.
All right, welcome back. Hey, Nolan, you're supposed to do this.
That's right. I'm supposed to do this.
Well, why don't
Welcome
you?
back to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. Do I get an A+ for saying that correctly?
What do you think? What do you think, Frank? How did you do?
A+. I give him an A+.
A+. I tell you what, I'm a little bit more difficult. I'm a little bit harder of an audience. I'm going to give you a B.
B. All right. I got
Overemphasis, but other than that, good.
All right, good.
And the beer. What are you drinking, by the way? Nolan?
Today, this is Brian Allen's suggestion. He's going to be joining us here shortly, and he's reminded me that today is Cinco de Mayo. So I'm honoring all of our friends south of the border with one of the best Mexican beers on the planet, Negro Modelo.
Nice.
What do you think, Frank?
Oh, yeah. Terrific. I'm having one. Thank you very much,
Excellent.
Nolan. I'm having one.
Well, guys, this is a show about sports and sports betting, so we don't cover horse racing all that much here because, to be quite honest with our viewers and listeners out there, none of us are the biggest horse racing fans. And there's a lot of horse racing content out there. There's plenty of horse racing networks if you're into it. And, of course, for me personally, I say of course, but you don't know this, I'm violently allergic to horses. If I come anywhere near a horse...
Is that really true?
Yeah, I swell up
Like what happens?
like a balloon. I swell up like a balloon.
bigger balloon than you are now?
Well, I'm a pretty big balloon already, but now my face and my eyes stream, and yeah, so I'm not that big of a horse racing guy. I do appreciate it, and certainly the people that love it. And the Triple Crown is always fun, and it does kick off today with the Kentucky Derby, and I thought we would bring in an expert to talk about it. And when we think about experts, there's always no one better to bring in than Charles J., who is an analyst with BetAnySports.eu. Charles, are you with us today?
Hello, gentlemen. How are you today?
Well, we're very horsey. How are you?
Terrific.
Okay.
Have you ever,
I don't
Charles,
know
have you ever heard of anybody allergic to a horse before? Seriously?
I got sick. I went to the yearling sale at Keeneland one year, and I had the sniffles for like a week after that. So I might be allergic to horses.
Yeah, or you could just be allergic to the prices of the yearlings as they were selling, right?
We're going to get into that in a second when we come to my favorite to win the Kentucky Derby today.
All right. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you break the field down for us? Tell us who's actually going to make the starting gate. Are there any scratches? Any late scratches? Who the favorites are, and who do you like? So I'm opening it up for you with that very general question. And I might add, for our listeners out there, that will complete my total knowledge of horse racing terms. So let's go.
Thank you.
I thought you guys were a little bit more on top of this. Okay, though, there's 20 horses in the field, and of course, that's a huge field, which makes this. And you guys were asking me about this last week. It makes it kind of a different proposition than other races. You asked me whether some people aren't as serious about the Kentucky Derby, and I think the significance of it makes people very much aware of it. But as a betting proposition, I'm sure there are some people who don't take it as seriously because you have such a huge field of horses. There are two horses who are clear favorites in the race as of now. One of them is a horse named Justify, which is a Bob Baffert horse. And this is a horse who is undefeated in 3 starts and really jumped up in class, went from a maiden special and broke maiden in his first race, then went to an optional claiming race, and then right to the Santa Anita Derby, which is a grade 1 race, and won pretty, convincingly all 3 times, moving up in class, up in distance, and scoring the highest Beyer speed figure in the field. Andrew Beyer, former writer, writer for the Washington Post, basically the speed figure is kind of an end number as they, factor in a lot of different things to come up with kind of a quotient as to how well the horse ran in the race. And Justify had a 107 Beyer figure, which is the highest in the race. Here's the thing about Justify, though. And, I made up a 5-horse trifecta box and left Justify out of it. Now this is a horse who possibly could win this race by 5, 6, 7, 8 lengths. I mean, it could be a super horse. At the same time though, has not faced a crowd yet. Only 5, 5, and 7 horses in those 3 races. Got 20 horses in this race. So we might have to run next to horses, and there'll be other horses vying for the lead in this one, as will Justify. So, I think there's a shot that the horse won't last until the end. There's another thing called the Apollo Curse in this race. And Justify did not run as a 2-year-old. There's another horse in this field that is one of the favorites, Magnum Moon, who the same can be said about. No horse has won the Kentucky Derby. No horse that has not run as a 2-year-old has won the Kentucky Derby since 1882. So that's 136 years of history. So you've got that on your side if you're going to go against Justify in this one. My horse here is called Mendelssohn, and this is a European horse.
Is he a composer? Is he a famous
Mendelssohn,
composer?
Well, I was going to get but I've called him the Jewish horse in this field to some friends of mine. This is the most expensive yearling in the field, $3 million yearling.
Well, wait, hold on. How can he be racing before sundown? It's the Sabbath.
Oh.
This is a horse with a kind of an interesting story. As I mentioned, sold for $3 million as a yearling. Has run up until the last race, has run exclusively on turf and synthetic surfaces. Last year won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, coming off the pace. But really is bred for dirt racing. So they finally put him on dirt in his last race, which was the UAE Derby, which is in Dubai. Won the race by 18.5 lengths, went right out to the lead and just stretched it. And really, really opened some eyes. Biggest earner in the field. And there are doubters of Mendelssohn. Number one, no UAE Derby winner has ever won the Kentucky Derby. Now, this is over a period, I believe, of 18 years that they've been holding that race. Another thing is this, as this horse has raced in Ireland and Great Britain, in addition to that race in Dubai, a pretty formidable trainer-jockey combo here in Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. But they have not had a lot of success at all with dirt runners in the United States. So a lot of people are pointing to that. I just think that this is a horse that's the class of the field. Has run in the last race 1 mile and 3/16, which is the longest distance any of these contestants has run, and closest to the 1.25 miles we're going to see today. So he's on top and across the board and part of my try box. So Mendelssohn, which is going off at right now it's 5-1 at Bethany Sports, is my favorite horse in the race. The other horses I'm going to use are Bolt d'Oro, which was second to Justify in the Santa Anita Derby, third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, has never been off the board, has never really run a bad race, and has also had buyer figures of 100, over 100 in 3 of his last 4 races. So it's a consistent horse and someone I'll use. I'm going to also use Audible.
Charles, hold that thought. Yes. We got to go to a break. This is really good stuff.
Really good
get ready
stuff.
to.
Yep. I think I'm going to bet Mendelssohn right now.
Well, you do that because we're going to go to break. Now's a great time to do it at betanysports.eu. We are speaking with Charles J., a betting analyst from Bethany Sports. This is Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. We're going to pick up where we left off on the Kentucky Derby. And when we're done with that, we're going to speak to Charles about the NFL season win totals, which have been published. We're going to get his take. We'll be right back after this.
Good stuff.
All right. Welcome back to the show. Mystery Sports, Sports Byline, SB
Nation Radio.
Very good, Nolan.
You're on top of me.
I am.
All right.
I am very pleased with that. Nick Geber, Frank Perez, Nolan Dalla. We are talking to Charles J. from BetAnySports.eu. We're talking Kentucky Derby. Sorry to interrupt you there. You were in full flow, CJ, but the commercial break overtook all and required us leaving you. But now we're back. So let's get back. You were saying Mendelssohn. Is that Mendelssohn the composer? Or is it Mendelssohn the conductor? Or is it Mendelssohn the horse that we're talking about?
It's Mendelssohn, the Jewish horse, who could win. I'm not going to say could win the Triple Crown. Actually, there's a price on him at Bet Any Sports to win the Triple Crown at 28-1. You can bet that right now at Bet Any Sports. I get into those options in a second. Audible is another horse that I want to use. I want to throw all the 5 of these out there. Audible, the winner of the Florida Derby, is another one in my 5-horse trifecta box. Javier Castellano is back aboard, and that's good. He knows the horse. 2 straight 99 buyers, which is pretty good. John Velasquez rode Audible in the Florida Derby, but Velasquez, given the chance to ride Audible here, chose instead to climb aboard another horse called Vino Rosso, who he's also ridden as well, but thinks that Vino Rosso has a better chance to win the Kentucky Derby. It's not necessarily the greatest post position at 18, but this is a horse who could be peaking right now. Hasn't beaten a lot of great horses, but did have an impressive run in the Wood Memorial, good workouts, and should get this distance, is bred for the distance. So that's another horse that's in my 5.
Good
and the
workouts.
5th one is a deep
I haven't
closer.
had any workout in ages. So anyway, keep going. Yeah.
5th horse is my boy Jack, which is a deep closer. You want to have the deep closer in this box. Someone who can take advantage in case there will be pace setters here. Mendelssohn may be one of them. Justify may be one of them. There'll be a couple of others. But if he's not too far back and doesn't have to pass too many horses, there's a shot for my boy Jack to hit the board here. He's been a closer at all distances and on all surfaces. And so he rounds out my 5-horse trifecta box here. Should mention, by the way, in the way of plugs for Bet Any Sports,
Yes.
there are 2 different race books that you can play at. One of them is called the Rebate Race Book, in which you can get a rebate of up to 9% on all of your betting volume, whether you win or lose. And there's another option, which is the plus 10% race book, where win tickets will pay 10% extra. And of course, there are qualifications to both of those, so check the website. But those 2 pretty good deals there. And
Hey,
if
Charles, excuse me. Hey, Charles, what's a win ticket?
Yeah. Hey, Charles, and what about the third option where you can put the bet you want after the race is over?
I like that option, and we've played that option. But let me mention this because we're always going to commercial breaks here. But let me do my own little commercial. No, this is actually news here. In this regular sportsbook interface, you can play really the fun part of this Derby betting, which is the props, where you can bet on horses head-to-head matchups. You can bet 2 ways. So in other words, you can bet on a horse to win, or you can bet against that horse winning. You can also bet on whether the saddle cloth the number that wins the race is odd or even. Bet on winning margins, all kinds of different things. Whether a horse will be in the top 5. So there are a lot of really good options that you can get at Bet Any Sports, which you can't get at the track.
Right.
And I wish they had at the track.
By the way, that's a really great addition, Charles.
Cool.
You know what? It reminds me a lot of the Super Bowl with all the propositions where you see hundreds of propositions, and you can have, you'll have action on every quarter, every player, every this, every that. And it's about time the Kentucky Derby had propositions like this. Is this something new, Charles?
No, actually, I've been doing this for a while, and you can, for example, you can bet on Justify, as I mentioned, 3-1 to win. You can lay 4-1 that Justify does not win the race, and you can do that for all the horses. For example, there's a price on where is it now? See, whatever it is on My Boy Jack, as I just mentioned, of one of my top 5. If he finishes in the top 5, you get paid at plus 215 odds, so you get better than 2-1. Stuff like that. It is fun. It gives you an opportunity, if you're sharp, to make some value plays as well. So it's definitely something worth checking out.
Yeah, one more thing, Charles, if I may. You talked about this promotion where you get 10% additional on your winning tickets and the other promotion as well. How long is that going to be good for?
That's always
been good for as long as I can remember.
Oh wow!
Actually.
You mean you can do this like?
I mean, it's a couple of years or something.
Oh, huge.
Yeah, you just have to check. There are details at the site. Just go and take a look at the site because there are featured tracks. I don't think it's at every track, but at all the major tracks, certainly.
All right, so go to betanysports.eu and check it out. We're talking with Charles J., who is an betting analyst with betanysports.eu. Charles, I want to segue the discussion over to the NFL because the season win totals have been published, and there's always a great deal of excitement around that. That's obviously a very big key part of betting on NFL football. So what are your insights? What are your thoughts after an initial look-see at the season win totals?
Well, do you have them in front of you? I don't have them in front of me.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a couple
of
things that I
in front of you there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Here's what I've observed, Charles, in the first week or so since a lot of the Las Vegas sports books have released these numbers. Let me give you some line movement, and you tell me if you agree or disagree with this. I'll run through this pretty quickly out of time. By the way, there's a lot of love for the San Diego Chargers. They were released at 8. This is a team we could talk about how great the Chargers were last year on the second half of the season on a roll. I think they finished 9-7. Probably should have made the playoffs. But this line opened up at 8, was immediately bet to 8.5. The other one in that same division, the Oakland Raiders, there's no love for the Oakland Raiders at 8. That's a team, with John Gruden coming in as a new coach. A lot of people thinking under on that. That's being bet down under. I'll give you 2 more, Charles, then you give us your thoughts. The Miami Dolphins, a lot of people like the over 6 in that division. Again, coming back healthy, the defense is supposed to be a lot better. The Miami Dolphins over 6, that's getting a lot of attention, a lot of play. And here's one I absolutely don't agree with, but I'm going to go on and just say it. The New York Giants over 7. I have no idea what these people are drinking, what flavor Kool-Aid they're tasting, but anybody that's betting the New York Giants over 7, please call me on my private line, and I'd love to book that myself. Anyway, what are your thoughts on those 4? Because that's where the biggest live movement has been the last week.
All right, let's talk about the Giants for a second. And I did pull up these numbers at Bet Any Sports, where the Giants are minus 135 at over 6.5. Okay, so that's to reach 7 wins. The Giants are 1 year removed from having, a rather imposing defense. They had injury problems there last season. They are absolutely crazy about their first round draft pick and believe he'll be an immediate difference maker.
That's the running back.
And Saquon Barkley. Now you have to remember that one of the things that has really plagued the Giants the last few years is their inability to run the football, which has put just way too much pressure on Eli Manning. So I think they see Barkley as someone who can be a workhorse. They've also acquired some help for him, but remember that Odell Beckham should be back healthy this season. They drafted a tight end in the first round, Evan Ingram, last season, who looks like he's going to be a high-level pass catcher. So it's not the Giants, just things started badly and kind of went downhill from there. McAdoo took a lot of heat, and apparently he lost the locker room early, and they think they're going to get a really good and beneficial fresh start with Pat Shurmur as the new head coach. And of course, the new general manager is Dave Gettleman, who was formerly the GM in Carolina. And they love their draft, from top to bottom. They got a guard from UTEP, I think, on the second round that they did not expect to go beyond the first 20 picks. So I like the Giants over 6.5.
Well, I like the Giants over 6.5 and over 7, maybe in the year 2021. But I don't know about 2018.
Right. Hey guys, we're out of time. I tell you what, let's do this. Let's make a programming decision right now. CJ, can you come on next week and do a full segment with us on the NFL season win totals?
Absolutely.
Okay. Next week, folks,
I'll be there.
We're going to get to it in excruciating detail for you right here on Fifth Street Sports. But we do have to say goodbye to Charles J. from Bet Any Sports. CJ, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We are going to step aside, take a break, pay a few bills, by the way. BetAnySports.eu is a great place if you want to place a bet. Very easy to sign up. They like you if you're from the U.S. You can put your money in very easily, bet away to your heart's content, and if you sign up now and use the code Fifth Street, you'll get a 50% bonus on your deposit up to 1,000 smackaroonies, which is not too bad. All right, it is break time, and we'll be back. We're going to bring back in Oklahoma Brian, so don't go anywhere.
Go Mendelssohn!
Or my boy Jack. I like that.
All right, welcome back. Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. We have great stuff there from Charles talking about the Kentucky Derby and some NFL. To tease next week's show, we're going to be talking all NFL all the time next week, but let's get on back to this week's show, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things coming up. First of all, Oklahoma Brian. Let's bring in Oklahoma Brian, who is our resident expert, sports betting expert. Oklahoma Brian, are you there, sir?
I'm here.
By the way, so
And-
I'm gonna lift my glass to you because this was your recommendation. Happy Cinco de Mayo Day. I have a Negro Modelo. What are you drinking?
Same.
Wow.
Negro Modelo.
Brothers in arms, geniuses think alike. Happy Cinco de Mayo to Brian, Oklahoma Brian. Nick, what are we talking about this last segment?
Right. Well, by the way, just before we get into it, that was a great segment with CJ. It really
Sure was.
I mean, the NFL total season win totals. I have to ask you guys because I am not the biggest NFL guy. Obviously, I say obviously, but I'm not. Is that your?
You like a different kind of football?
Yeah. No, I enjoy the NFL. Don't get me wrong. It's just I didn't grow up with these baseball and football, so you don't sort of get inculcated into the sort of lore and mystique.
What?
Inculcated.
Well, that's a new word.
Into the lore and mystique of the games, which is what makes a lot of it so much fun, rather than just looking at stats. But it is a season win total is everybody's favorite thing to bet on, right?
Well, I mean,
Before the season, obviously.
yeah, and again, it's funny that the NFL and other sports used to be seasonal, and now it's there's an NFL Network, right? Like, why are they showing the NFL Network in May, right? Well, if you go there, they're talking about the draft, and they're talking about the training camps, talking about trades, talking about, and so it's such a big business, such a. And by the way, when the NFL season win totals come out, which is May, we're in May now. If you don't pounce early, you're losing a lot of value. So that's why we're talking about season win totals now, because you need to get the early values.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Something else I want to talk about is obviously we have the changing situation with the laws that are out there on the books. I said litigation. That's clearly going to be coming. But the laws that are there on the books regarding sports
But enough
betting.
about Trump.
Yes, changing. See that, Frank? They're changing, and the Supreme Court is poised to overturn the federal gaming restriction and allow states the rights. Well, there's a couple of nuances on this, actually, and this is a topic for another show, and we're going to drag it out because the longer the Supreme Court takes to actually render their decision, the more show content we'll get out of it. But assuming that sports landscape becomes legal soon, there are a lot of nuances that this brings up. Now, Brian, you and I were having a discussion this week, a fascinating discussion. You were saying that one of the big sportsbook chains here, and again, we're in Las Vegas, at least Fifth Street is in Las Vegas, Oklahoma Brian is unsurprisingly in Oklahoma. But here in Las Vegas, a lot of the sports books are run by one or two companies that sort of run them for many of the hotels. Now, not all of them. Some of the hotels have their own sports books, but most of them are chains. And these chains, as of late, Brian, seem to have been, or not as of late, seem to have a policy of kicking sharps out, people that are winners, consistent winners, not allowing them to come back. It begs an interesting question with the legalization of sports betting, in terms of what sort of rights will a company that holds a monopoly have to refuse service to anyone? Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm pretty confident. If I could bet on this, it would be an all-in bet. I'm pretty certain that the entities that secure the rights to offer bets in these states they're gonna be the ones writing the rules. And I think it's gonna go down, unfortunately, the way that it has gone down in Las Vegas and other jurisdictions. They'll be able to take bets from the customers they want to take bets from. And it'll be interesting if we end up in a situation with some of these states with only one company as a licensed bookmaker. If that company doesn't want to take bets from you, I'm not sure that this changing legal status in your state made any difference to you. And I guess the analogy that comes to mind with me is, I don't know if you've ever been to Mexico, on vacation or just across the border to place a bet.
No, I've just been to a couple of donkey shows, nothing much more.
Well,
he lost his ass. Go ahead.
Good one.
I'm not going to respond to that. All right, so the monopoly, the company that owns the lion's share of the business in Mexico is a company called Caliente.
Yeah.
And they're great if you can bet into them. Excuse me.
That'll help.
Yeah, get the chaser. Get the chaser with it. Yeah.
Well,
there we go.
Man, I've actually improved yesterday. But I had to coach a kid's soccer game this morning. I yelled more than I thought I was going to.
A soccer dad. That's like the worst.
Hopefully you were drinking the beer there during the game. I'm setting a good example.
Actually, I was the fill-in coach. I made my coaching debut today.
Did you win? Did you win? Real quick, did you win?
24-0.
24-0. Very good.
Wait a minute, a soccer game?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No. You just say I feel the other team gave up 24 goals.
No, you get get 6 points per goal and
well, we're going to call him.
Oh my goodness, that's.
We're going to call him Oklahoma Guardiola now. Yeah, that's right. That's his new. Get
name. Back. You were talking about Mexico before we interrupted.
Get back to Mexico.
Okay,
so Brian, like at 21 or 22-0, you didn't tell him to just slow down. You made him keep scoring to shame the other team.
I didn't make it. I tried everything I could. I think the game was actually called short a little bit, but
a mercy rule.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine if the real coach was there.
My wife is normally the coach, but she was out of town, so I filled in.
Okay, so back to Caliente. That was interesting.
Yeah, so with Caliente, really, really juicy lines, but they're also notorious for kicking out players that seem to have an idea of what is good value and what's not good value. So, some of the greatest lines on the planet, if you can find a way to bet into Caliente, but if they don't want you, you're out unless you can find a friend to come in and it's a phenomenon that exists in Las Vegas and other markets around the world where it's kind of a cat and mouse game of throwing out customers.
So Brian, so this is how I see this working. And again, everyone's gonna have their own opinions on this, but once these monopolies come in, and they are monopolies, don't get me wrong, they also have they're going to chase away the sharp sports bettor because they're not going to want them winning. It's just like if you go to a casino. Hold on a second. It's like if you go to a casino, and we can talk about these stories. We hear them all the time. So-and-so just kept winning on video poker, 100 play, and they told them not to come back anymore. Or so-and-so's constantly winning a blackjack or what have you. They don't want to lose money. That's not part of their business opportunity. So they're going to chase the sharps away, offshore primarily, where quite honestly, and then a lot of these states have their hands already in the pocketbooks of the sports bettors, as we've been talking about in the last few weeks with the leagues that are all trying to put in their various integrity fees for a group of people that have none, but they're going to put it in anyway. The latest is there are 2 or 3 states that have already passed a 2.5% fee to the league's integrity fee. And at some point, it's going to, because sportsbooks have to balance. It's the nature of the beast, right? I mean, they got to balance both sides of it, right, guys? Right. Once you add in an integrity fee and the fact that you don't want sharps there at all, you want it full of donkeys, and you want to be able to squeeze the lines down. You want to be able to squeeze the lines down so that you're not giving great value. So it's going to come to the point where the sharps are going to all go offshore, where the better value is, where the better lines are. And you're going to be left with Donkey City.
It reminds me of to use another favored Las Vegas institution, the buffet. Can you imagine if you're going through the line and suppose you're carrying a few extra pounds and somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Sir, you can't enter this buffet because we know you will eat more than the $9.95 or whatever the price is." It's kind of the same thing with sports books, isn't it?
When they say that to me, I tell them to go to hell.
I understand. And I understand that they will put a limitation on the amount of your bet. If college basketball games, $1,000 limit, $2,000 limit. I understand that they can't have somebody coming in betting, $500,000 on a game. I understand that, but everybody, at least according to the Nevada Gaming Board rules, should be treated equally, whether you're a dummy or whether you're a really sharp bettor. I mean, this is when the lines are up there, everybody should have equal access to them. Don't you agree, Brian?
Hey, I couldn't. You're preaching to the choir. I couldn't agree more. And like Nick said, these guys in these new states that are brand new to sports betting, they're going to have higher operating costs because in their mind they've already decided they're going to pay whatever that ridiculous fee is to these leagues. They're brand new to the business. They have higher operating costs. It's going to be a renaissance for offshore bookmakers like we've never seen.
It'll be interesting to watch and see how this unfolds, particularly as we mentioned the integrity fee. More and more states end up getting blackmailed by the big leagues into taking sort of money out of the pot. Look, I look at the idea of a sports book as someone that runs a sports book has a very fine balancing act they have to do. I mean, this is their job, right? This is their specialty, right, Frank? I mean, you got to balance the book, right?
No, but see, now here's the thing is, especially with these legalized books and the ones in Vegas, the players post up money and they're laying $1.10. That's the most ideal thing in the world for a bookmaker. But these guys are so lazy. Some of these sportsbook managers or directors are so lazy. They don't watch their lines. They got bad numbers. Then they get mad because you're beating them to a number where they're 1.5 or 2 points off. It's all their fault. I grew up in this town, and Bob Martin used to say, a guy that lays me $1.10 in cash, I just want to go on cruises with him. Long cruises, and just let him keep laying that. If you watch your numbers and you watch your things, and you don't have to kick players out, you can like if you have a $5,000 or $10,000 limit on the game, just reduce that sharp guy who you say down to 1,000 or down to 500. Then he works for you. Let's say he bets in
right.
basketball. He bets the Lakers -6. This is a sharp guy. As soon as he bets 500 or 1,000, he's working for you because you can bet that out somewhere else for 5,000 or 10,000, or move your line to 7.5. But they're just lazy. They got a suit and tie on. They want to go for their lunch break in an hour. They're making their 80 or 90,000 a year. They don't watch their lines, and they get pissed off because they think everybody's going to bet 5-team teasers into bad numbers, and they can't believe anybody wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you a question since you've been around this town for a long time, and let's talk about Las Vegas sports books. And it's probably the same applies to offshores to a certain extent as well. When they said the NFL last year, a lot of bettors beat the sports books. Do sports books lose? Do they have a losing month? Does that happen here in the state?
Maybe a losing month, but you're laying me $1.10 in the NFL. You know what? I bring it. Just ship it over here. I wish it was mine. Nobody's beaten the NFL at $1.10 in cash with a good solid line. I don't care who you are.
All right,
You're
guys.
not.
We got to go to break. Fifth Street Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. We're chatting with Oklahoma Brian. We're going to be right back to wrap up hour number 1 after these messages. In the meantime, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Fifth Street Sports Talk. Or Twitter at Fifth Street Sports. We'll be right back after this.
funny how many people got your Mendelssohn.
All right, folks. Welcome back. Fifth Street Sports. Sports Byline USA, SB Nation Radio. Nick and Frank and Nolan and Oklahoma Brian is in the ether somewhere.
That was a fast hour.
It was. Very fast hour. We're going to pick up that. By the way, we do a sort of little bonus. We're going into hour number 2 now, and we're going to be speaking with Cody Longo from Esports Insider about some esports topics that are going on right now, particularly if you like to bet esports and e-gaming. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to be offering you a lot of different options on our show and on our website at fifthstreetsports.com to get information about betting esports. In the meantime, though, we'll be chatting with Cody this hour. We'll also get back to Oklahoma Brian. We're going to be talking about some more interesting topics. We'll probably pick up the discussion that we just left off a little bit as well. But we also will be talking about the Champions League and the Europa League finals. They are now set. I'm going to give you my insight and thought into those, and we can discuss some of the lines that are out there and where I think some value may be on these two finals. So we've got a lot to get to coming up in the next hour. In the meantime, folks, want to invite everybody to go to our website at fifthstreetsports.com, go to Facebook page, facebook.com/Fifth Street Sports Talk. It's a little bit different because apparently there is a Fifth Street Sports shop somewhere in the Midwest.
And you can follow us for daily picks.
Yeah, we do put out daily picks every day. It's baseball. It's we're going to be doing the NFL win totals when they come out. We'll put some of our picks up on that. We don't do horses so much. That's why we had CJ on here for you. We do soccer all the time, and we're going to be getting to the World Cup. We can talk about that a little bit this hour. So much to get to, folks, here on Fifth Street Sports. Wish we had more time in the day. We do have another hour ahead, though, so make sure you stay with us here. Twitter is at Fifth Street Sports, so be sure to check that out and participate in the show that way. We're going to go away now for a few minutes. Top of the hour news is coming up. It is pretty depressing, guys. I'll be honest with you. What's out in the world today with your guy, especially with your guy, Frank. It's depressing stuff.
Come on.
But hey, listen, after the news...
He's signing with Korea.
You can come back and cry into your beer with us. We'll be right back with more here on Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio.
Happy Cinco de Mayo!
You guys are going to be
right, welcome back to the show. Hour number 2, Fifth Street Sports, here on Sports Byline, SB Nation Radio. Nick and Nolan and Frank with you. Oklahoma Brian is in Oklahoma, and we're going to bring him back here in just a minute. We do have a wonderful hour to get ahead, to get to. This hour, we're going to be talking to Cody Longo from Esports Betting Expert with Esports Insider. We're going to be talking to Cody about some e-gaming and some esports issues. We're going to be talking Champions League this hour. We're going to be talking about the Las Vegas experience this hour and some of the hypocrisies that seem to be arising now that we have to deal with, all right here on the show here at Fifth Street Sports. You can find us on Twitter at Fifth Street Sports. Facebook is facebook.com/Fifth Street Sports Talk. You can see it all here. And, of course, we do have a new YouTube channel, by the way. It's youtube.com/Fifth Street Sports.
You can see all the old shows, too.
Yeah, you get all the old shows and some specials. And, by the way, Nolan, we just have a minute here during this sort of intro section. You've been doing some really interesting interviews for the Basement Tapes.
Yeah, indeed. We've had basically professional gamblers, including Steve Fezzik, who won the Las Vegas Hilton contest, handicapping contest 2 years in a row. He was our first guest. Then we had the Duke of Fremont Street, who is a Las Vegas legend, and we're going to have a lot more coming up in the next several weeks.
Interesting guy, the Duke of Fremont Street. Shows
Interesting
up in
to say the least,
a zoot suit, basically.
Yeah, he's amazing. Drives a 1938, I think, Buick something or other.
I wonder what sort of gas mileage he gets on that thing.
Probably better than my car.
I doubt it. All right. So we got a lot to get to this hour. I hope you'll stay with us here on Fifth Street Sports. Coming up on the other side of the break, we will be speaking to Cody Longo from Esports Insider, and a lot of interesting things happening in the esports and e-gaming world, particularly as it pertains to betting. A couple of big tournaments coming up. We're going to get the scoop from Cody. If you'd like to place a little bet, you can bet esports, by the way, at betesports.eu. It's another thing they've got in their huge menu for your edification and for your gamblification. And I should be a rapper with all these great words I'm making up. They're all
Kanye, yes, move over.
They're all rubbish, but wait, I don't know. All right, we're going to take a break. Fifth Street Sports, Sports Byline USA. We'll be back. All right, welcome back, folks. Fifth Street Sports Byline, USA, SB Nation Radio. Nick, Nolan, and Frank with you. We have been chatting over the last few weeks with Cody Longo, who is with Esports Insider, and he is a sports betting correspondent, I suppose is the way to put it, and along with general e-gaming and esports. So let's bring Cody in because there's a lot going on, and we want to have a chat with him about this. Cody, welcome back to the show. Apparently, Cody cannot hear us, and I'm not sure why, but that's okay.
He looks terrific.
He does look good. Cody, do we have you? No, we cannot hear Cody now.
Well, we're working on Cody. You know, this is the thing about esports, how big it's getting. One of the things about our show is we're trying to come in and, frankly, look at us, right?
Oh,
we're not esports. You were saying, Nick, go ahead.
All right, do we have you, Cody?
Hey, guys, if I'm live, I'm not hearing any audio.
All right, so we don't have Cody doesn't have any audio. Let's go ahead and...
We can hear you.
Hey, Cody, can you hear me now?
No, it's all right. Okay, we'll move on.
Right.
So when we get Cody's settled, we'll
get Cody
We'll
on.
come back to it. All right. So in the meantime, guys, interesting discussion we had with Brian last hour, talking about some of the regulatory changes regarding around the legalization of sports betting and what it's going to mean for you realistically in terms of the monopolies that some of these companies are going to have. This is a discussion we had with Brian in the last hour. We're going to have this discussion over the next series of shows as we get ready for the big countdown, which is the Supreme Court's announcement of their decision about the New Jersey sports betting case.
Yeah. By the way, why do you think that's taking so long? We thought this was going to be decided a month or two ago. We were waiting. Of course, the Supreme Court never telegraphs their intentions. They just come out with a decision. Right. Why is this taking so long?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, it's not just this. I mean, apparently the Supreme Court's been very slow in general about getting out those decisions. I think maybe Clarence Thomas is searching for a pubic hair in a Coke can.
Ouch. Should we be worried about this, though?
You know, that's actually a really interesting question.
Like when the jury's out, you know, there's a trial and the jury stays out. It looks like a slam dunk case, right. And apparently sports gambling.
Yeah.
New Jersey was supposed to win this case, and then all of a sudden, why is it taking? This is not a good. That means they're debating longer, and it's kind of like.
So you actually, it's a great question. I'm really glad you brought this up.
I'm glad I asked.
Because I've been reading about this a fair amount. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I have never played one on television. Although I did successfully complete a very long class on Roman law as part of my college degree. But that in no way.
And look what you're doing now.
And that in no way qualifies me to speak about this from a legal perspective. But from what I can read, from what I can glean out there. There are a couple of ways that the Supreme Court can look at this. One is that they can just lift the federal restriction. They can say, you know what? Sports betting for everyone. It's up to you, okay? Or they can do a more narrow approach to this, and they can say that the federal government doesn't have the right to tell the states' governments what they can and cannot do in terms of sports betting. From what I'm reading about this, these are the two decisions. One is a more narrow decision, and that will require more legislation on a state level to get it through, and it's going to require a longer runway until we get to this sort of nirvana where everyone's betting from their cell phone as they drive down the road. And so that is really the question. But you're right, Nolan. There's a possibility they may uphold it.
Yeah. So Frank, if you're betting and you are a betting man. How long do you think before you go across this country and you drive from East Coast to West Coast and you drive across all these states that the majority of the states you drive through will have legalized sports betting where you can drive into a casino in just about any state and place a bet on whatever you want to bet on?
You know,
how far away are we from that reality?
That's a great question. The thing you have to consider here is the government being involved. And anytime I think about the federal government or anybody, the time that they take. I've been living in Vegas 54 years, and I've seen those orange cones on the freeway since I was 2 to build the same freeway. Right. I mean, I don't know who's doing the work here at night. So when the government's involved, I mean, it should be right away. I mean, they want to raise taxes. People want to gamble. People want to bet. Make the decision. Let's go. Let's move it. if it were run like a business, the decision would already be here. But it's the federal government. They're going to take so much time, and I predict. Oh gosh, Nick, let me see. I say 12 to 18 months.
Oh, so within a couple of years. So by the time the Las Vegas Raiders become a reality, you'll be able to drive again through all these states and say, "Yeah, I want to bet on the Las Vegas Raiders."
We don't have to because we live here. But let's say you live in Arkansas, or you live in Oklahoma, or something. Yeah, once it gets going, it's going to snowball fast. Everybody's going to want a piece of the action. That's for sure.
Right.
Once it gets.
From what I've been reading, it's going to be very interesting. First of all, some states, particularly New Jersey, have already laid down all the infrastructure they need to bring in sports betting. They've been working on this for a long time. They've been in discussions with lawyers and regulators and technology people to make sure that this is ready. It's like a ship. It's already built. They're just waiting to smash the bottle over the bow and, down it goes the ramp. But most other states actually aren't like this, and they don't have legislation in place. They don't know how they're going to regulate it. They haven't thought about all the nuances about it. Are they going to deal with it like they do with the state lottery? Is it going to be dealt with more like they're trying to legalize poker in many states? And so it is going to be really interesting to see. And I think a good model that we can look at is something that we were discussing earlier, Nolan, which is the intrastate poker model. So poker is not illegal to play online poker, but it is currently still a violation of many of the federal statutes for money laundering, still a violation of the Federal Wire Act for a lot of these companies to do business here. But if state itself can pass regulation to have online poker, as a number of states have done, but you can play people within that state. Now, Nolan, recently, a number of states have opted into a pool, so explain how that worked.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a very good comparison between sports gambling and a shared liquidity as is the term for poker. And just for those who don't know what I'm talking about, keep in mind that before, if you lived in the state of Nevada, if you played online poker, and it was legalized here like in 2014 or 15, I forgot what year, same thing in New Jersey, same thing in Delaware. So again, the three states, New Jersey, Nevada, Delaware, the three states that have legalized online poker. And the problem is if you're in Delaware, which is a very small state population-wise, there was not enough liquidity. There weren't enough players. When you lived in, say, Dover, or you lived in whatever city in Delaware, you'd go and sign on, and there were no games. Nevada, kind of the same thing, despite this being a very obviously gambling-centric state. I would go to some of the websites here and play, and there'd be 6, 7 tables. Now, New Jersey is a much larger population. I think it's 7, 8, 10 million people, somewhere in there. It's a big state population-wise.
They all have bad hair.
Big
hair.
They all talk like this.
Yeah.
And so it's the most densely populated state in the country, and it's also technically, everyone has a computer for the most part in New Jersey, so it's easy to go and sign up. And so New Jersey gave us really a very good template for how to manage. And by the way, it's very profitable. People talked about, it didn't make any money, it was a flop. No, it wasn't. New Jersey's online poker market was very, very good because it had liquidity. Now, May 1st, what happened? For the first time in American history, legally, you could play here in Nevada and play against players from New Jersey and play against players from Delaware. We have three states. And so I actually went on and I started playing Thursday night, Friday night, and I noticed instead of having 6 games, there were 60 games. Why? Because I'm playing against players from New Jersey. Right. By the way, why is what I'm saying important? Well, I'll tell you why. If you're an online poker player, maybe we don't get back to the golden days of 2005, 6, and 7 when Party Poker and Poker Stars and the rest of them had thousands of games going at once. However, if we get to the day where we have Florida and Texas, and especially California, join the liquidity pool, it will be happy days are here again.
So we're going to wrap this segment up, but that's right. And the thing is, I think we're going to see the same model, Nolan, in sports betting, where each state will have to have its own pool, but they can band together like they do with state lotteries. I mean, that's how you get the mega lottery and all this sort of stuff.
When you say pool, you mean the lines will stay the same?
Yeah, the lines will stay the same, right? In other words, they'll be able to look at the same base across all the states that opt in.
Supreme Court, get off your ass, giving us a decision.
But now, if I was one of the... Are we going on a break? Okay.
So let's do that. We'll be right back with more Fifth Street Sports.
What were you going to
Gotta
say,
listen
Frank?
for the music.
What,
Okay.
what were you?
Oh, this is cool.
Wow. Who's doing that stuff?
All right, folks.
Well, welcome back to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. What a great discussion we've had so
Well,
far.
you're getting better and better.
Now we're getting ready to get into some real meat. We want to appeal to not just Americans, but like everybody, including those across the pond. And he's originally from some country over there. And he's going to talk about, we're talking about Nick Geber here with Frank Perez, and I'm Nolan Dalla. We're going to talk in a moment here about the Champions League. And also some of the things that went on the Premier League, which is the English football's NFL, I guess you would say. Give us an update. What's going on in the Champions League?
Oh, well, should we bring Brian in?
Oh, let's please do.
Yeah, let's bring Brian. And by the way, for those of you that tuned in hoping to see Cody, we had some Cody had some technical problems on his end, I believe, but it doesn't matter whose end it was. And so we couldn't get him on. I believe we will work hard to bring Cody back.
We're teasing everyone to have him on the next week.
Yeah, work hard to get Cody back next week. This whole loot box discussion, I'm very interested to hear about. But let's get to the Champions League, where the final is set. It will be Liverpool playing Real Madrid. Now, Madrid beat Bayern Munich over 2 legs in the semi-final. Liverpool beat Roma over 2 legs, and Roma sure made a game of it at the end there. But
is this the ultimate championship? Is that what it means?
It is considered by most football purists to be the ultimate club competition. And for those of you that don't know what I mean by that, you have to differentiate between a club competition with a Liverpool and a Roma and a Real Madrid and a Barcelona and a Bayern Munich. These are all clubs like the Raiders or the Rams or whoever it is within a league. But each country has its own league. So the top clubs in the world. So it's like saying, it's hard to really put it into American sports comparison because we don't really play any sports in America at where we're not number one at, where there are other competing leagues. It's very difficult to make that, except maybe to say that in England, the Premier League is like the NFL. In Germany, the Bundesliga is like the NFL. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Each country, their top level soccer league is their top level league, and so the way the Champions League works is based on a coefficient. Teams from the European group, because world soccer is built into groups. The organization is UEFA, that's the European Football Association. The top teams in each of the European leagues compete against each other during the course of a soccer season for the European Cup. That's how. I don't know if that makes sense to you. That's different from the World Cup or the Euros, which is a national team competition where Team England will play Team Germany or Team Italy or Team France.
But aside from the World Cup, the Champions League, whoever wins that each year, that is a huge deal. It's second only to the World Cup. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, right. Because the European soccer leagues are considered the best leagues in the world, better than the South American leagues and the North American League, and so
it's stronger than the Uzbekistan Cup, right?
Yes, right. The Uzbeki First Division really probably can't keep up.
Or the Thailand Third Division, right?
Right, exactly. So the European leagues, I mean, these are the biggest teams in world football: Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Manchester United.
But those are teams, Nick, that everyone recognizes.
Yeah,
even Americans who don't follow soccer know those teams.
Yeah.
The surprise that Liverpool is playing at this level?
No, not at all. Liverpool is the most successful English team in European football.
Everyone knows Manchester United, of course.
Yeah, but that's just because Manchester United has a lot of marketing dollars and has an American owner.
He doesn't like Manchester United.
I can't stand them, but they have been run as a global brand. I mean, it's actually a great question you're asking, Nolan, because English football ruled football for many, many, many years. And then a situation happened with football violence in the 70s and 80s that saw English teams banned from international football. English clubs, hooligans.
Rioting.
And during that time, many of the other global teams really started to pick it up, the German league, the Spanish league. But Liverpool Football Club has been the most successful English team in Europe, period. They've won the European Cup 5 times. They've won the Europe, what is now the Europa League, was then the UEFA Cup. I think they've won that 3 times. They've won a whole bunch of European honors, World Club Cup. I mean, this is the biggest, not the biggest brand, but the most successful English team in Europe. So, no, I'm not surprised they're there. Absolutely not. Liverpool are there, and I've been a Liverpool supporter for many years. I'll be full disclosure here, folks. But Manchester United are a big brand. Manchester City have been a big brand since they were bought by Sheikh Your Booty, who bought... by the
say that again. I don't think we said that on the air.
Sheikh Ali Mansour Al something or other
Okay.
has been a great patron to Manchester City, put tons of money into them. Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea. He's a Russian oligarch and put billions of dollars into Chelsea. I mean, there's not a surprise why these English teams that 20 years ago were a joke. Manchester City, I'm sorry, City fans, please don't send me hate mail. I do like your club a great deal, by the way. Manchester City, Chelsea was bought for £1 by Ken Bates. They were in bankruptcy. They were nearly facing relegation. I mean, these weren't always sort of global powerhouse teams, but the influx of money into the Premier League since it became the Premier League and split from the First Division has been so enormous that it's made acquiring a Premier League club such a lucrative thing, because the TV rights are worth oodles and oodles and oodles of money, not just in the UK but globally. So to get back to the Champions League, it is considered rightfully so the premier football competition on the planet. For those of you, one of the questions I'm always asked, and Frank, you've asked me this a number of times, is would Liverpool beat Team Germany?
In the
You
World
had a
Cup.
club team versus the answer is yes, because club teams stack the best players from all the countries around the world on them. National teams, unless you're blessed like the Brazilians to breed enormous quantities of excellent football players, or the Argentines the same way. Your national teams don't tend to be as stacked top to bottom with great players.
Wouldn't the German national team have all the very best teams from the Bundesliga?
All the very best players, German players playing around the world, will play on the German national team.
You're saying that Liverpool would be favored.
Yes.
The club team would be favored over all the best players.
Real Madrid would beat every single
but they
national
wouldn't be
team.
favored of the Brazilian team.
Yes,
probably.
they would.
They
For
would
sure.
be.
For sure they would be.
Really?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Now,
of course, the problem is they have Brazilians on the Real Madrid team. The question is that, but this is the issue.
How deep does your analysis go? Okay, you just said that's true for Liverpool. Is that true for most of the Champions League? To upper tier teams?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, because these teams, look, you can go out and buy the very best players in the world. If you're a national team manager, you can only choose players that are nationals of your country. So your pool is therefore very much more limited. People say, why have England been so terrible in the World Cup? Well, England's a small country because you can't choose Scotland, you can't choose Wales, you can't choose Northern Ireland.
So is Portugal. I mean, they're
well, England itself is a small country. Portugal has been blessed by having a lot of some really game-changing players like Cristiano Ronaldo come through Portugal as of late. England did win the World Cup, or be back in 1966, right? So, but look, to get back to the Champions League for a minute, we have 17 Champions League titles between Liverpool and Real Madrid. Liverpool have 5, Real Madrid, by the way, Bayern Munich have 5 as well. Liverpool have 5, Real Madrid had 12.
Wow.
And so you really have a battle of European giants. Now, most people I know say Real Madrid is the big favorite, and they are a big favorite. Currently, Real Madrid to win the Champions League is minus 140. Liverpool is plus 120. That's extra time and shootouts included. If you're looking for the actual Champions League final, the odds are very, very similar, by the way. And the goal, and they're looking at 3 goals in total, so the over 3 or under 3. So it's going to be a closely run affair, as these finals always are.
What are your thoughts on the side and the total, Nick?
I think the total, even though these are the 2 highest scoring teams in the Champions League, both have set records this season, and you have 2 of the world's best football players right now on the planet playing in this game, with Cristiano Ronaldo for Real Madrid and Mohamed Salah for Liverpool. Finals are very rarely full-on, open, free-scoring affairs. They're usually very cagey. They're very, they're just generally cagey, low-scoring affairs. I think 3 goals, if I see someone winning it, it's not a 1-0. I'm seeing a 2-1. So I'd be more likely to go with the over than I would with the under. But it's not going to be 5 goals. If it's the over, it's going to be 2-1. It's going to be 3.
Once somebody gets up 1 goal, it's just they lock it down.
Yeah, right. So, and it can't end 1-1, right? So,
No, but in regulation.
But in regulation, it's not going to end a draw. In regulation, I don't think this is going to go to over.
Now, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading that as far as dollars or money, that that the franchise at Real Madrid is more valuable than any franchise in the world in sports. Is that true?
Well, it is true, but you have to look at it with a slightly different viewpoint. And this is a discussion as we talk about fair play. Fair play has been a big issue in global football for a long time, and by that I mean, wow, does that mean we're out of time already?
What's fair play? Finish
Well,
that thought.
fair play essentially means what gives one team the right to just spend every penny of
Like the New
Roman
York Yankees used to
Abramovich's
outspend
$100 million. Is there's no salary caps in world football. So fair play tries to build some sort of a balance between it, very unsuccessfully. We can pick this topic up another time. We didn't get into the details.
We just got started.
Yeah, I know. Well, we do have hour number 3.
I had one thing.
Go ahead, quickly.
I had one thing to offer.
Yeah.
Quickly, Stoke City relegated. Karma. They're the worst weenie book in the world at throwing out players. at 365. So there.
Well, they've been a bogey team for my team, Liverpool, for a number of seasons, so Down they go. Down they go to the championship. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more here at Fifth Street Sports Byline USA, SB Nation Radio.
So this is cool.
All right, folks, we're back on Fifth Street Sports Byline USA, SB Nation Radio. Nick Geber, Nolan, Dalla, Frank Perez, Oklahoma. Brian, I did dominate the last section talking about global soccer. We can pick up that discussion and talk. Rather than continue
You're
that.
like the Energizer Buddy when you talk about soccer.
I love it. I've loved the game for a long time. Have the honor of being considered by many people as somebody that's been instrumental in the growth of the game here in the U.S.
He's broadcasted games. In
Sure,
Europe for
and I am honored to the people think that of me. I will say that the game would have grown here with or without me, but it was wonderful and is wonderful to be a part of it. And if I might just take a moment to say, 20 years ago, when I said to various radio networks and knocked on their door, hey, I really want to get in front of your audience and talk global football. I was laughed out of every program director's office. Literally laughed out of program directors' offices. You want to talk about what? No one cares about that here. Go away. Don't bother us. You're crazy. We'll put you on at Sunday morning at 4:30 in the morning for 5 minutes. I mean, that was it. Except for one network. One network. And I was referred to them by the great Andres Cantor of Football de Primera. The guy very famous for the goal. Right. And that was this very network, Sports Byline USA. And I have to say, this network has been known for differ for not just traditional sports talk, because Sports Overnight America and Ron Barr, really, I mean, they're in the Library of Congress, for crying out loud.
They created a monster.
But the network has always taken a chance
That's nice.
on different sports, understanding that as we have as the internet comes in and people are exposed to different things, that not everybody wants to talk MLB and NFL. I mean, you always do, of course, but I mean that there are different strokes for different folks, and Sports Byline has always been stroking people differently, and to use the analogy. And I'd like to actually take this opportunity to thank Ron and Darren, who have been there forever, and just really great guys. And I wouldn't be here today doing this without them. They have been on and off on this network for nearly 2 decades. So anyway, it's been great.
One more question before we leave this topic. Yeah. I'm interested in something on the World Cup. The World Cup has been shown in the United States. It's coming up this summer, the 2018 World Cup. It's being shown throughout the world, and obviously in the United States. And it's been shown here back into the 70s. I remember watching the World Cup matches, and probably very few Americans watched the World Cup. First of all, the Americans didn't have a very good team, and if they even qualified, and they weren't interested in watching the Brazilians play the Germans or what have you. Today, this country's different. Demographically, it's different. You have a lot more immigrants. I'm curious about the ratings for something like the World Cup coming up in the United States. Is it progressively higher every 4 years?
Well, it's a great question, Nolan, and I cannot speak off the top of my head about the predictions for this cycle, because it's every 4 years, World Cup, because the U.S. did not qualify for the World Cup this time around. But they have been growing progressively year over year over year. They become very valuable properties that networks are willing to pay a lot of money for. I tell you what we will do. We will have on, when we get closer to the World Cup, Christopher Harris and Kartik Krishnaiyer from World Soccer Talk, who are really experts on soccer media and to answer specifically that question. But the U.S. did not make the World Cup this year. There's lots of discussion about how that's going to affect viewership. I don't think it's going to be all that bad, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to affect it all that much because it is the most watched sporting event on the planet every 4 years. There's nothing that comes close. Super Bowl doesn't come close. The Olympics don't come close. The Champions League final is big but doesn't quite come as close. The World Cup is the most watched sporting event, and we will be giving you all of our tips and picks and insights and values right here on Fifth Street Sports throughout the World Cup and as the lead up. But let's change topics, shall we? Now that we have Oklahoma Brian with us, and he's sunning himself.
This is going to be an abrupt turn
in the sun. Yes,
change of directions.
Brian, guys, I read an article on Yahoo about a cocktail waitress, and yes, we are really making a crazy U-turn here. Here in Las Vegas, that along with her union is spearheading an attempt to change the contract for those employees to include sexual harassment, to cover under sexual harassment bad behavior by casino and hotel guests towards that individual. So let me put this into perspective. If you're sitting there at your machine or at your table or whatever it is you're doing on one of these nice hotels, and some very lovely, scantily clad young lady comes up to you and asks you what you'd like to drink, and you make a sexual comment, or you ask her out on a date, or you do or say something you shouldn't. By the way, I'm going to give you my opinion about that sort of behavior in a minute.
Oh, I'll bet.
Okay. She can make a complaint to her human resources department and therefore have the rights to compensation or to sue or to whatever it is under sexual harassment. Now, it brings up a really, really interesting set of issues, because I'm going to open this up because I've been talking way too much here. But my opinion, I'll just give you my opinion. I'll put it out there. These girls, really no guys. I have yet to see a male cocktail waitress or waiter. I will say this.
No, the Rio has them. The Rio
has a few, right? I hardly see them, but they work their butts off, bringing you your free drink so you can sit there, continue to gamble with the casino. I personally don't think that they're marketed in the right way. I personally think, I can't imagine. I was at South Point last night, by the way, with my girlfriend, and have you seen the outfits these girls wear at South Point? These cocktail waitresses?
No, describe them.
Sheer leggings, They look like they're going into a 1980s Jane Fonda workout, basically, with then a sort of bustier, and if they're large up top, their big boobs are sort of spilling out. And if you are a supermodel, I'm sure you're going to look absolutely terrific in this outfit.
Right.
But most of these women that are working these jobs, they're not supermodels. I'm not saying they're not pretty. It's not the point. I can't imagine working a job. I would be so self-conscious in a pair of leggings and a bustier, because I only generally wear those on like a Saturday night when it's just me and I've got the camera crew here. I mean, the camera crew, they go outside. But I just don't think it's, first of all, I don't think they're marketed in the right way. Second of all, I don't think people treat them correctly as customers. People bring you drinks. So it's an interesting question. But Vegas sells sex guys. That's what we sell here in Las Vegas.
Well, it's not just Vegas. It's every bar. It's all over the place. But let me ask you, that's just the way it is. But I've been living here 54 years. Okay, the girls are serving drinks to guys. They have bustiers. They have leggings, high heels. They look great. They're fantastic. And a lot of times you get out-of-towners that are here partying with a bunch of drinks. So, yeah, you're right. They'll sometimes make an off comment or something, something bad or something that. But it doesn't happen that often. And let me ask you, Nick, I was going to ask you, so now you're a cocktail waitress and a customer says something rude to you or something nasty or vulgar. So they go to human resources. Who are they suing?
Nick would last one day as a cocktail waitress.
But
he wouldn't get through get through half of his shift before
But
he
who's this
off.
cocktail waitress suing? Who's she suing?
Well, that's what you're going to sue the casino.
The casino.
For providing her an unsafe work environment.
Oh, you know what? And then, so what if somebody yells or something to the girl at the front desk or at the Starbucks in there? Pretty soon, why don't we just all go? Why don't we just all start wearing like nun outfits and be nice and easy and everybody's going to be mic'd up then? I mean, every girl's going to wear a wire.
Frank, to go down to the craps table and there's a bunch of nuns and priests throwing the dice with headsets
I mean,
on.
if you're
I like
going to
the
start
visual.
getting,
It's good, right?
Listen, if you're going to start issuing out lawsuits for what? Look what she said to me, or he said this. Then everybody's going to be mic'd up like if they're in an FBI thing. You know what I mean?
All right,
come on. Enough already.
I got something to say, but I'll tell you before I go to
enough already.
All right,
with
Brian,
this.
you've been silent long enough, sir. Please, what do you think?
Well, I'm curious. So, what is the casino's take? I would think their position is going to be that these are independent contractors and entertainers, and they enter into this business at their own.
Well, they're not independent
discretion.
contractors. They're not independent contractors. They're employees of the casino. They're not independent.
But do they not work on tips primarily?
Well, yeah, but they get a base salary and they get tips. But I think they pool them, number one. Also, look, I used to go to Caesar's Palace, and this was a number of years ago, and I can guarantee you this lady is not working there anymore. But she had to be in close to late 70s. I imagine she'd been working at Caesar's since the Rat Pack was since the Rat Pack was performing there, and she was a very nice old lady, cocktail waitress, and would literally come out in the high heels,
the same thing
and
as
the
a
little
22-year-old
teeny mini skirt and the leggings and she was old and wrinkly and she was a lovely lady, by the way, and a great cocktail waitress. But I kept thinking to myself, here's a woman that's put 20, 40, 30, 90 years in with Caesars. Why are they making her show up in this outfit to do her job? Surely they could have a range of different outfits with the same overall style for cocktail waitresses, and you could choose the one that you're most comfortable in to go to work. If you have a great body and you're a supermodel, well, maybe you'll slide into that short little outfit with the boobs hanging out and life is good, and you're going to get loads more tips because a bunch of horny out-of-towners are going to tip you more. But then maybe you're an 80-year-old woman that's getting ready to retire, and you're going to feel more comfortable in something that's not quite as, not quite as inappropriate for somebody in your position of your age. And I'm sorry, those 80-year-old guys that probably love to see her falling out of her outfit. But I just looked at that and I kind of felt bad,
Well, this comes down to one thing, and that's that about 8 or 10 years ago, the city of Las Vegas, or actually, to be more specific, the Las Vegas Convention Bureau,
the LVCVA,
authority here in Las Vegas, came up with a new slogan. And that slogan, everyone in the world knows it, which is, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Now, I never liked that phrase because that slogan that meant to attract people because there was a hidden message within which essentially says whatever you do here and you can't do back in
Right.
Peoria, Illinois, you can do it here. And that
Come
kind of
crap
that kind
on
of
my floor
implies-
and then go home.
And that implies maybe illegal behavior, certainly scandalous behavior, doing things that most people wouldn't do back in Peoria. I don't mean to pick on Peoria, but I'm using that metaphorically. So the very fact that we've set up in Las Vegas this culture where you can misbehave, this country is built on quote unquote misbehavior, gambling, drinking, sex, partying, all these
Speak for
so-called
yourself,
vices.
Nolan.
No, that's why Las Vegas existed, because those vices were not available to the other 49 states until, that's why they came to Las Vegas. Now, of course, you can do those things in any city in America, in any city in the world, for that matter. I see things both ways here. I think that you would be the first to agree that when someone goes to work, they should be entitled to not be sexually harassed and not have to go through a lot of abuse. And by the way, whether that kata waitress is 22 or 72, she is entitled to the same right to work, the same environment free of harassment and so forth. I think you'd be the first to agree with that.
Agreed.
So I think that the problem is we're in a very much, and I'll wrap this up by saying, we're in a gray area. The Me Too movement is something that I think most of us will say, it's about time. This is a good thing. And then you get into, has it gone too far? And I think Las Vegas is almost the perfect case study of the gray area of where is the needle going to land. And I'm not sure there's a really right
You
answer.
mentioned Me Too, and Frank's eyes rolled in the back of his head.
What are you saying? Well, Harvey
Nolan,
Weinstein was not wrong?
Of course he was wrong.
Okay, so
all that
let's-
stuff.
so
These
let's
girls
start.
deserve all the respect and everything in the world. But let's just face it now. This world is wild and wacky and wicked, especially when you come to Vegas. Remember, I've been here all my life. So when you say that thing about what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, well, a lot of the people, when they come out here for 4 or 5 days or a week, they save their
Frank,
money.
Hold the thought. We got to go to break. We're running late here. We'll
Okay.
pick up with Frank on the
Overtime.
other side. All right. Welcome back. Fifth Street Sports Byline, USA, SB Nation Radio. Nick and Frank and Nolan and Oklahoma. Brian's in Oklahoma, and you can hear him because that's how technology works. It's been a fascinating show, guys. We've talked some great topics. Now, Frank, you were just about to let fly with your opinions on what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, where they're all just too bloody sensitive about this stuff. And I want to hear it, but I don't want to have you start and then cut you off because this is basically the end of the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to extend the show.
You're teasing everybody.
We're going to extend the show by whatever it takes. And you can check it out by going to youtube.com/Fifth Street Sports. And you can watch us live on YouTube. We're going to continue the show. No holds barred. We can use naughty words if we have to, although, quite frankly, we really haven't. And if you want to see Nolan frothing at the mouth and yelling and screaming, that is absolutely worth every second you're going to invest in it.
It's true, but Andrew Dice Clay summed up Vegas in a very short little rhyme of his. Jack and Jill went up the hill. They each had $1.25. Jill came down with $2.50. That's Vegas. The girls are going to get the money. The good-looking, it's action. It's about sex. It's about wildlife and music and gambling, and that's just people come to Vegas for that.
I can say, I'm sure when you started to quote Andrew Dice Clay, the folks in the network
Yeah,
started.
they have their hand on the
No,
button.
that was what,
No, you did well.
Listen,
You did well.
Jill came down with $2.50.
Yay. All right, guys, we're going to go. We'll be back on the air with you next week.
Nursery rhymes by
That's
Frank.
an Andrew. One.
Are we just rolling with Brian like that? That's the open? Yes. Wow, that's a pretty interesting open. All right, well, here we go. Can you, for some reason, I'm hearing myself in my headset again. Can you? Oh, you got to turn that down. There you go. All right, folks, welcome back. Hour number 3 of Fifth Street Sports. Uncensored, no holds barred. Nick and Nolan and Frank, and let's bring in Oklahoma Brian, shall we? He's been very quiet. Brian, let's hear what you have to say about this. What do you think? The discussion in the second hour of the network show was, has Vegas gone too far in the Me Too era with all this, what happens here stays here? What are you looking? What's it look for?
What do you mean? Have they gone too far? They haven't done anything.
No, what I'm saying is,
have they gone? Have they gone too far? Las Vegas has not instituted any changes. If you walk the strip tonight, you will see all kinds of craziness.
Well, I mean, maybe I didn't put that correctly.
Las Vegas, but let's not get carried away here. There's no rules. You're not going to get arrested for having fun here.
How does Vegas handle this? What happens here stays here in the Me Too era. Let me rephrase that. What do you think, Brian?
Interesting. I mean, I always enjoyed the how long did it last where Vegas was trying to market itself as a family destination?
About
that was
7
my
years.
favorite. I always tried to tell my wife when it was time to go on a vacation, hey, we should just bring the kids to Vegas, and she never really bought into that. Although we did go a couple times, and my kids actually love Vegas, but in terms of this rebranding of Vegas every 5 years, I think that's just part of Vegas. You can't stay with the same marketing approach constantly. That's just the nature of marketing Vegas.
All right, so Brian's going with the more technical corporate marketing viewpoint. Frank, I know you had a load on your mind. Let's unload. This is the time.
No. I was just getting back to that. Like you were talking about cocktail waitresses. They're 75 years old and they make them wear stuff that the 25-year-olds wear that are really hot and sexy. Well, you know what? It's the casinos, and when as young guys and young people, they want to see hot girls, they want to see hot cocktail waitresses, and they're getting protected more and more by security now. You're not allowed to touch them or say ugly things to them. They can get reported to security. You'll get thrown out or warned, but it's just the way life is right now. If you're 75 and you're in a market where 25-year-old girls that are looking hot, wearing high heels, making tips, and they make you wear that outfit, well, I'm sorry. It's an ugly, vicious world.
But
that's
don't you think?
too bad.
But don't you think the casino should be able to say? And maybe I'm focused on this old lady at Caesars, but I mean, don't you think they should have enough respect for this woman to be able to say,
Yes.
hold on. Here's a different outfit. It's the same kind of theme, but here's a different outfit for you to wear. Something that you. But it's not just you say 25-year-old girls. There are lots of not hot 25-year-old girls. I'm sorry, I'm not hot myself, but I mean, I'm saying there are lots of not hot 25-year-old girls that are working as cocktail waitresses in these casinos that are overweight, that have maybe had 3 or 4 kids, and they don't have bodies that normally they would be flaunting around, that are wearing sort of tight body hugging tights and all this stuff. I mean, I just think that we need to get over this.
Gentlemen, there is a model for what we're discussing here. Do you know what the previous model economic business is? The airlines.
Yeah.
Stewardesses.
Sure.
They used to wear hot pants. Used to fly Southwest or Braniff or other old airlines that back in the 70s, and they were, I'm not making this up, hot pants.
Oh, I remember.
They sold sex on the commercials. It was like, touch my ass, hey, I get off at whatever. I mean, that was part of the marketing campaign of airlines. By the way,
I never thought you'd ask.
by the way, oh, that's a frightening thought. Times change, ladies and gentlemen. Times change, and so when you, again, in a casino, I understand people want to look at hot girls or whatever the thing is, but you know what? If I'm ordering my drink and I'm at a table, I don't care if it's a man, a woman, a heavy woman, a heavy man, or a monkey. Just give me my drink in the next couple of minutes. That's all I care about. You're getting the same $2.
But you don't have to tip a monkey.
No.
Wow, Nolan,
you're killing my stuff here, man. I got a heckler. Can we just get security involved in this set, please? No, seriously, real quick.
Nolan, do you really?
Go ahead, Brian.
Do you tip $2?
It depends on what I order. I mean, it depends.
I think $1 is the standard.
It depends. I usually ask for a double. So
if I'm winning, I might tip $5.
No, but you know what's crazy is I valet parked in 1983. And back then,
is your car still there?
Yeah, no, but when I was a valet parker in 1983, and I just did this during the off season for 4 months at Bally's. Like the most common or tip, or like thank you very much, was $1. The guy gave you $2. That was pretty good. A deuce was pretty good. Now, I see people still tipping $1, still tipping $2, or still most of the time it's $1. But that's 35 years later.
We have very low inflation here in the U.S. though.
Well,
35 years.
Let me ask you a question. Having been a valet, I guess this is more of a doorman question, but if I'm waiting for a taxi, does the guy that opens the door for me to get into the taxi, does he do $1, or is that just part of his job?
Well, if you're a cheap bastard, no.
No, because I remember as valet parkers, one of us worked the taxi line. Then it was like this. The guy who worked the taxi line, usually that was about a 20 to 25% tip. You would get $1. 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 guys would tip you $1. It was a low percentage of getting a tip opening the car door for a taxi. But listen, if you're in the industry and you got money and you're in Vegas, guys opening the door for you, I don't know, you give them $1, but
Right, okay, so
have a little class.
So this is a tipping issue, but I want to get back to the sex issue. You brought up a great point in the last hour, and this is something that I want to talk about. There's a mindset of people that come to Las Vegas. Look, we've talked about it. There's the high rollers and the high strollers, and there's 2 different groups of people. But when I'm around a casino, I'm always amazed at the fact that people think it's all right to yell at the top of their lungs,
Very good point.
to swear at the top of their lungs,
Right.
to act out. And I think in some ways what happens is, because Las Vegas is a town where people think they can shed their inhibitions, it's quite all right to come here and shit all over my bed and then go home to your clean bed. And I think that's how people look at this. That doesn't matter what they do here. It doesn't matter how much damage they create or they can, do whatever they want to do here because it's not their house. And then they can leave. As somebody that lives in Las Vegas, it irritates the crap out of me. But I want to go back to bring this back to the whole cocktail waitress thing. I think that's why people treat them as poorly as they do. And we are going to get a cocktail waitress on this show and talk to her about her experiences, because I think it's really interesting stuff. Again, the most interesting things that happen in Vegas are the service providers and talking to them, limo drivers, escort ladies, cocktail waitresses. They got great stories to tell, guys. But
hopefully our names won't come up in those
But
stories.
you want to know what though? Vegas cocktail waitresses, limo drive, they get treated with the most respect and the fairest anywhere in the country. I have one of my nieces is a cocktail waitress in Atlanta. They get abused. First of all, they get $2 an hour because they're working on tips, and the house is allowed to not even pay a minimum wage. $2 an hour. In Atlanta, they get abused. I was in Baltimore, they get abused. Boston, Kansas City, they all get abused over there. Vegas has the fairest, cleanest, most decent, regulated gambling environment, social entertainment environment than anywhere in the world. We have more cameras, more security, more experience, more anything than any other city in the Milky Way.
Yeah, look,
okay?
Look, Frank, a cocktail waitress is less likely to be sexually assaulted on a floor of her workplace here in Las Vegas
than
because of the
anywhere
security
else
of
in the
camera.
country.
But we're not talking about sexual assault here. We're talking about the way people treat other people
in Las Vegas?
And yes, is very, very poor.
Well, here,
and that's because the city's marketed as.
Now, let's get real over here. Okay, first of all, you're dealing with humans. So now let's just say that I said to you, listen, we're gonna have a bunch of we're gonna have a bunch of humans come in here. They're going to be on vacation. They're going to be drinking, gambling, partying, betting on everything, doing all at the same time within the same 10 square miles. Do you think these people are going to be starting reciting New Testament and stuff? They're going to be getting crazy.
No,
Come on.
No.
That's like you telling let's bring 50 8-year-olds to Chuck E. Cheese and just have them sit there.
Well, let me ask you something. I think that we can agree on one thing. Let's try to find some common ground here. I think we can agree that someone, a young lady that puts herself, the term is put yourself in a position. If you're applying for a cocktail waitress position on the Strip, you probably know what you're getting into.
Yeah, agreed.
You also know
it's not that bad.
Let me finish, please. And you also probably know that your income, to a large extent, depends on how well you play the game. The little wink, the little tussle, the little
flirtiness,
that's the difference between a $350 night and a $175 night.
Right.
If you're doing those little things, and so there are fine lines. There's a lot of gray area. I completely concede those things that people who put themselves in the position probably have to put up with a certain amount of. I guess the word is abuse, or maybe things that press the line. However, that being said, once you're working as a waitress in this city or doing things in that field, shouldn't they be entitled to the same protections in the workplace environment anywhere else in the country?
They have it.
Let me finish, and then we'll throw it back to you. Hooters around the country, what are they known for?
Twin Peaks and
okay, they're
girls
known,
looking hot and all that.
If you're a waitress at Hooters, you're probably going to get some sexual banter. Is that acknowledged?
Yes.
By the way, I understand that Hooters is Hooters.
So and they have another place, Twin Peaks, same thing.
If you're serving cocktails in a casino, that's not Hooters. You're bringing drinks.
I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I've been in casinos for 50 years, even as a little kid. I don't see all this harassment and all this crazy
anymore. Okay, Frank.
I don't see all this stuff. But let me explain something to you too. These girls at Cosmopolitan, Aria, Bellagio, they're making $400 to $700 a night in tips because of their looks. They look good. They're protected and they should be respected. Don't get me wrong over here. But when they start crying like he said something awful to me, me, he said something. Let me tell you something, honey. You're making $500 a night in tips in cash, okay? You're going to deserve that because you're making more than a guy or a girl that went to school in pharmacy for 9 years. They start off at 110. School teachers, professors make 60 or 70. You think you can sit there and make $200,000 a year, 75% of it tax free, and think that you can just go on and just think like, oh, I should be so listen. You want to make that kind of money. You want to make that kind of cash without getting an education, because a lot of them dropped out of high school. Because in Vegas has the highest.
You make a really good point, and let me just follow.
Take the heat.
You make a really good point, and let me just follow up with a really short question. Let's suppose we have we have a high roller and a regular roller. I don't know what the term, just a regular gambler. Right. And the high roller is extremely abusive. That's somebody that's in the baccarat pit and they're losing millions and they're tipping high, and they're just absolutely abusive, pinching her on the ass.
No, not that.
Hear me out. And just because that person is tipping more or losing more, should they be entitled to more rights or more latitude than the average gambler comes in?
No.
Explain why not.
No, but now, first of all, the pinching of the ass and the touching, that doesn't happen.
Touching that
you're not. You're not supposed to. You
actually,
can
does
tell.
happen.
Okay, but you can tell security and high roller or not, they're gone. Okay,
no, I agree.
But let's just
you
say,
think they throw out any high rollers?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. For pinching in the ass and all that kind of stuff.
Touching and
now,
physical.
How about propositioning?
No. And I don't think they should
listen, okay, I'm a cocktail waitress, and I'm sitting there making $500 or $600 a night. All right, now I got a bunch of young little guys betting $10 a hand in blackjack. They're tipping me 50 cents or $1. I go over there to the $1,000 minimum table, and every time I bring the guy a beer or a shot of whiskey, he throws me a green chip or a black chip, and he says, "Honey, nice ass." You know what I say? Thank you. I take the green chip or the black chip, and I say thank you very much. And I go back to my thing. You want to make the big money. You got to take a little bit of heat if you want it. Or you could say, don't say that to me anymore. I'm offended.
Hold on. Okay, so
I'll take the black chip, and you can say I got a nice ass. I don't care.
So the argument is interesting because I actually agree with you, Frank.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I totally agree with Frank. And I think his point is well made. The point that I'm making, though, is that we have to understand that not everybody is a hot cocktail waitress.
That's true.
And that I think, and really, I looked at this from an outfit perspective.
You did your research.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, if you're a hot cocktail waitress, you'd be quite happy to go out there and deliver drinks nude because you're going to get 5 times as much money, okay? But it's the 75-year-old cocktail waitress that's being forced to wear this really hideous...
See, but Nick, that's a smoke screen. That's a smoke screen.
No, I know.
I agree with you.
But the point that I'm making is that
which one is going to be the guest?
Yeah, but,
the 75-year-old one.
Yeah, but
both would be really good.
But Brian, like this point that Nick's trying to make is such a smokescreen. It's almost like the abortion thing with the rape. It's such a minute thing. How many 75-year-old cocktail waitresses are there actually out there?
There are a number of them.
Okay, like would you say it's less than a quarter of a percent?
Hold on, stop.
Is it less than a quarter of a percent?
Okay, so you're focusing in on exactly one. I was talking about a 75-year-old cocktail. Let me rephrase it. What about a 28-year-old cocktail waitress that has had 3 kids, weighs 195 pounds, and doesn't look good, and you don't particularly even want to see her in spandex and a bustier top? Shouldn't that woman be allowed to wear or have a different choice of outfit that she can wear so she doesn't have to parade around half nude? Because let's be honest, other than probably a very thin strata of rappers, I have absolutely no desire to see that lady without any clothes on. So that's the point I'm making. In fact, I might tip her to go put some clothes on and come back later.
You know what? But their customer service and their personality is usually the best. The cocktail waitresses here are all classy. They have great personalities. I've very, very run into a very rude one that's out of line or anything. This thing about 75-year-old waitresses, you're talking about 1 in 500.
You're not. Go to South Point now.
Okay, what is there? 2 there, 1 at Caesar. Okay, so now,
but
let's get back to
cocktail waitresses are overweight and are forced to wear these sort of really. I can't imagine being in that position, no matter how much money I'm making. Okay, but I'm feeling comfortable wearing this outfit.
But see, now you got to look at it from a casino's point of view. Let's say I owned a casino and I had 200 girls. 20, all from a 1 to a 10. Let's say in each one there's 21s, there's 22s, there's 23s, weight-wise or looks-wise, the way that everybody judges them here, right? So I'm going to have 10 different outfits?
Yeah.
Like,
You
you're
can
a
have a
2,
choice of
so I'm
4
going to wear
different-
this. You're a
No,
9, so you're going to wear a thong.
No.
Okay?
You let them decide what they're most comfortable in wearing.
No,
because,
what they should have decided was to
because-
stay in school. Because if you're 190 pounds and as a cocktail waitress and you got to wear this, maybe you should have thought of a different
Okay, but
profession.
that's nice, but that's not reality, okay?
Okay,
The
well then
reality
I'm
is-
not going to have 10 different outfits
I'm
for
gonna
the
have
classification
3
of
different
weight and looks. I'm going to have 10 different cocktail waitress outfits because of different weights and sizes.
I'm going to have 3 different outfits, and I'm
Oh,
going to
is it
say,
3? Wait a second.
hold
What-
on, let me finish.
What if she's 600
And I'm going to say to
pounds?
my cocktail waitresses, you can choose whatever outfit you're most comfortable in working in.
Okay, that's fair enough.
And I'm not telling them what they have to wear. If the one thinks she weighs 280 pounds and she looks great in spandex,
That's
good,
fair,
God,
that's-
God bless her. If she's
3
comfortable going
no,
out to work in
3
that thing, there's
3's
some guys
fair
love
enough.
that, and they'll give her big
Yeah,
tips.
but
you know.
3's fair enough. But once you open up that gate, that 3's going to become
You
4.
You just give them a couple of things to say. Here's a couple of different variations on our normal cocktail out on our.
That's
you know.
fine. I'm good with
Which
that.
one do you want? Okay, but let's get off this a second. Let's get back to the issue of people coming here and shitting in our bed and then going home to their clean bed. Were you here? I was in the casinos, and I was here when we had the NBA All-Star game here. Do you
Oh, that
remember
was an
You remember that,
infamous-
Frank?
infamous
Yeah, I know.
3 or
Brian,
4
were you
days.
here for that?
No.
Oh my God! I was at Caesar's Palace on the floor.
This was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. Talk about
The NBA All-Star Game was held in Las Vegas, and it was a riot.
they
almost.
have. I've never seen more swearing at the top of their lungs,
Right.
more shouting, more fights, more bottles thrown, more people just showing absolutely no class and behavior. I mean, when's the whole James Bond thing where you used to wear a tuxedo and show some class at the table? You know, martini, shaken, not stirred. Now it's, fuck you, here's a machine gun, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I just, there's just a total lack of class, total lack of etiquette. And I think Las Vegas has brought that on itself by the way they market this town,
But
the way the
it's-
LVCVA has gone out to promote
But
it.
it's not just Las Vegas. Now, we all agree that we're living in a very graceless age, okay?
Yeah,
right
I
now,
agree, Brad.
as far as class
Right.
and everything else, people manners and everything, it's very graceless.
Right.
If it were up to me and I could perfectly design Las Vegas and I grew up here, I would have it, even as Brian mentioned, I would have it in 3 different sections. Let's say from Tropicana to whatever, I'd have 10 casinos like the Excalibur, the Luxor. I'd have all the rides and kids stuff, penny slots, hot dogs, all the young, no hot shows, cocktail waitresses dressed in. I'd have the middle as absolute class, like back in the Frank Sinatra, or 10 or 12 casinos. Everybody's in suits and ties, classy, older people. Shows that have like this.
I want to hear. About the third segment.
No, and then the
Naked, I
third
think.
section.
That's where Nick and I are going to hang out.
Right. Well, so then the third section is I would have them 10 or 12 casinos, young, wild guys, risque shows, drinking, football parties, everybody going nuts, blackjack yelling and screaming and craps. I'd have that. And you know what would happen after a while? Everybody would be in that section.
Let me just.
And we'd be right back to Vegas.
Let me just say something. I think it's an interesting kind of utopian fantasy you've had.
Yeah.
Here. By the way, you already have that in Las Vegas.
You do?
Yes, you do.
Well, then why are they complaining
You have
about it?
downtown, which has a certain component to it.
I love downtown. by the way.
Me too.
Live shows.
Me too.
Very middle class. A lot of dope smokers. A lot of Californians. If you go down there, there's a certain demographic that gravitates downtown, which is kind of what you're talking about. Downtown's a little, good security.
Yeah.
A little bit wild, a little bit of amusement park, but it's a little wild. And you get into the Bellagio and the Aria and the Venetian and the Wynn. They don't put up with shit there. They're not going to put up with the same shit there that they put up with at the
Sure they will.
at the Cannery.
Sure they will.
Unless you're a high roller.
Sure they will.
If you're at the Cannery, though, I'm not talking about, let's say, the Boulder Highway casinos. Some of these places that I call them low-rent districts. They mostly locals, people that don't gamble high. A completely different demographic. Las Vegas is already segregated already.
But the point that you made is actually an important one, and you're mistaken, because I'm telling you that they will put up with just about anything at those big casinos for the average Joe gambler. You don't have to be a high roller. I mean, whether
you're
it's,
right. You'll hear the
whether it's
F-bomb screaming in the hallway
whether it's
there.
the
That's-
NBA
I
All-Star
can see
game or what
that.
have you.
I can see that.
I've seen anything go there. I mean, I
By
remember,
the way, that wouldn't have gone 20 years ago. It gets to your point of the lack of civility on social media and in live. People don't hold up doors for any people. All the lack of manners. That's across the board.
The grace and the class is gone, not just in Vegas, but not in Europe. Not in Europe. I've seen it a lot different over there. But I love Las Vegas, and Vegas is going to always figure out a way to regulate it, keep it clean,
Yeah.
keep it whatever. And I'm with you, Nick. That bothered me a lot of times that people can come to Vegas, piss all over the place, and then go home and just say, I just left Vegas like if we were a real shit town, and
Yeah.
everybody can come and do whatever they want. But you know what happens in the main? We start getting rid of them. We start getting more securities, and we just take their money.
All right, Brian, you've been chopping at the bit there. I see like a wild horse sitting in the gate, ready to run. Run, sir.
And the horses
Well,
are
you know,
off.
I don't. Well, I don't think it's just Vegas. I mean, I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but not much. But I remember as a kid when I would go on my parents would take me on a trip, and we would get dressed up to get on an airplane. Like that was a big deal.
And you had a good meal.
Nowadays,
it was good.
Yeah, nowadays you get on a plane and there's people wearing pajama bottoms and bringing a guy next to me had a box of pizza sitting next to me.
Hey, you
I
know,
don't know where he
Brian,
got
It's
it.
an Airbus. It's a Greyhound bus in the sky.
I remember seeing a news piece about this kid that won a trip to the White House to meet the president.
No.
And he shows up in jeans,
No.
sneakers, and a T-shirt.
No.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And I'm, can you imagine? Can you imagine your parents saying, "Hey, you're gonna go meet the president"?
That wasn't a visitor. That was the new chief of staff.
That was Donald Trump Jr. No, But look, we can talk about the whole cultural breakdown and manners and all that stuff, but I really want to focus it in on Las Vegas because it's all the same discussion, guys. Whether it's having respect for a cocktail waitress being able to say you can choose one of 3 outfits,
I like
whether
that.
it's saying, which I think we'll all agree is a reasonable thing, right?
Okay.
Right.
Whether it's saying to the guy next to you, "Hey, listen, this cocktail waitress, yeah, she's hot. Yeah, we'd all love to, take her home and have our way with her, but she's plastic fruit, mate. Okay, plastic fruit, like
Plastic
strippers,
fruit?
like strippers at a strip club. They look great, but you don't want to buy. You can't eat it, right? You want something.
I'm not touching that.
You want something that's not plastic fruit. You can see those direct to your door truck that drives down Las Vegas Boulevard. You can give them a call. By the way, I promise you, the girl that knocks on your door is not the one in the picture. All right.
It's from experience.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just expectations. I mean, I remember
Friend told
coming
me
here
that.
when the Rio opened, Frank, and
Oh, yeah.
and everybody around California say, "Oh, the Rio's incredible, and all the waitresses there are hookers."
No.
That's what people were being told.
Right, but that's not true.
No, of course it's not true. Of course it's not true. But what I'm saying, it's like that's that whole vibe, that whole.
Right. They all think there was more than one shooter in the Kennedy thing. Anyway, so let me
aliens
ask you.
did it.
So, no, but Nick, but
Is it the anal probing, Frank? Let's be honest.
no, but Nick, you made
Do it
one.
again.
But you made one great point that I've been dying to ask you guys this.
Yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy guy or nothing, but do you think that every casino has to pay one yelling, screaming idiot, no matter what casino you're at? It could be, and then the thing about it is like it's like if once they yell and scream, if you go over there and they haven't hit anything more than $40, they should get thrown out. I mean, it's like they got to have a designated screamer no matter what.
You know,
Isn't that true?
That's so true.
Yeah,
They're always
crisis
the
actors. I like
there's
this.
always the ones yelling and screaming that win like $20, or
No matter
or,
what.
or if you're playing a little video poker, someone that's going to stand right next to you.
Yes.
Okay, or if I'm smoking a cigar and I got a big, and I'll find an empty video poker thing to play it, right? Someone will sit right next to me and give me the stink
Complain
eye
about
and
the-
complain. And what is it with people? Really, it's crazy. They yell, they scream, they do all this sort of stuff. They have no etiquette, no manners, no nothing. I mean, so many of these people just have a complete lack of class. I do want to ask one question, a little off topic here, guys. You know, when I was doing the World Series, I was playing a lot of video poker.
You mean what was a poker?
Yeah, this was 10 years ago. And what I noticed, and it always struck me that most of the people playing video poker were men. The women generally played a lot of slot machines. Okay, but recently I've noticed tons and tons and tons of women playing video poker, and I just wonder if any of you guys have noticed that shift.
I believe that there have been some studies by people with letters after their name, like PhDs and so forth, that talk about video poker and why is it popular with a certain demographic, and it's particularly popular with older women.
Yeah,
And one of the
Asian
reasons
women,
is
I think, too.
Well, one of the reasons is, first of all, aside from slots, you have no control of the outcome.
Yeah.
You have a certain amount of control over slots.
Women
video poker.
women always want control, don't they?
No. I'm saying that's an important thing, and you also lose yourself in the moment, in the cocoon of that relationship you have with the machine, and obviously the hope and the dream of hitting the royal or what have you, and I believe that this is a real problem for the future of video poker in this town. Is that this is it's like horse racing. We talked about horse racing earlier in the show. It's a aging demographic. Next time you go in a casino, next time you go in, particularly if you go in the South or somewhere, not so much Las Vegas because you have a lot of young people that come here, but go in the South or go around the country and look at the video poker players. I guarantee you they're all 45 and 50 and up. There's not 24-year-olds, and then that's a real problem. And so, what do you see? And you've been to the G2E convention, the gambling convention.
Yeah.
They're trying to make I know video poker and slot machines not the same thing, but they're trying to make the slot machines much more colorful, interactive.
Yeah.
They're based on
more like video
Friends
games
or Batman or
video
all these
games.
other things. And so they're becoming video game centric to try to appeal to the 20-something.
Interesting.
Video poker is, if I'm a gambling man, which I am, is dying and will be.
You
I don't
think
want to
so?
be dead. But I think it's like craps. If you walked into a Las Vegas casino in the 40s and 50s, you'd see craps and blackjack.
Yeah,
you'd see craps, and then when Edward O. Thorpe came out in the 60s, you see blackjack tables packed, and then you see changes in the demographics of gambling, what's popular. Then you see the video poker craze. Then you see slots, and who knows what the next thing is? Maybe the e-gaming.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because. What you mentioned is really true. They are marketing slot machines to a younger and younger and younger demographic. And I'll give you an example. They have a machine. My 9-year-old, one of his favorite video games is Plants vs. Zombies, where you run around and you're a plant and you shoot zombies. And it's like a fun shooter that a lot of parents like their kids to play.
Who dreamed that stuff?
It's crazy stuff, but it's fun. And the kids love it, and you're not blowing a soldier and his head off into 5 pieces, and it's kind of cartoony violence, and it's better. Although I remember when we all used to complain about Tom and Jerry being overly violent. But having said that, that's a tangent. We're walking around the casino a few years ago. One of the first times he was also old enough to register, what was going on around him while we were here in Las Vegas, and I remember him saying, "Plants versus Zombies," and he looked around, and there is a bank of enormous, fully immersive, curved screen, vertical
kidding.
Plants vs. Zombies slot machines.
And nobody under the age of 25 would get that.
No one. Are you telling me they're not marketing this to little
kidding.
kids?
Wow.
But if he went near that machine,
wow,
the security guard would have come and poked him away in a minute.
So this is an interesting thing that you've risen about marketing.
Yeah.
They talk about like tobacco companies, right? Remember Joe Camel, and they'd have cartoon characters.
Now it's Joe Camel Toe, and he works in Vegas.
And kids apparently 7, 8, but it's the imprint. It's subliminal advertising. Are you saying the same thing as exists?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. By the way, I think it's Joe Camel Toe actually that makes the waitresses' outfits at most of these places. Sorry.
No, but
at least you're winding back to our original topic.
But it is scary though. Like you would have there's got to just be, no matter what, you can just say, hold it, there he comes. Every casino has an designated screamer.
Designated screamer.
No
and
matter
people
what.
that just
Do they hire them?
Listen, folks, if you're coming to Las Vegas and you're coming to have a great time, by all means, if you want to yell and scream and have a great time, go to Fremont Street, which is all sorts of fun. Go walk up and down Fremont Street. They got bands playing. They got crazy people. That's where you yell and scream. Don't yell and scream across a casino floor. You got people whose ears you're racking, or whistle, or cackle at the top of your life. Have some manners, for crying out loud. Get a grip on yourself.
Not during the show. Not during the Solano
But you know what?
show.
But you know what I've always thought as a guy. I'll be sitting there, and if I'm playing video poker or doing something, and then you hear that scream, that and you go over there and you see the girl and they've won like $12 and they're screaming. You know what I always think when I go back to myself and I think to myself is, well, thank God I don't have to go home with that. Thank God. I mean, could you imagine listening to that or taking that everywhere you go with gambling, and your girl is the designated screamer, the idiot, the designated screaming idiot for $12?
We can make a joke here about if you're with somebody, the designated screamer. I mean,
yeah.
That's a bad. I
mean,
joke.
No matter how bad it is, it's not your girl. You know what I mean? Like somebody's got to go with that. Take that one home. Thank God it's not you.
let me rescue you, Frank. Okay.
Okay.
From, all the hate mail you're about to get.
I mean, it's a fact. Every one of us know. Every one of us guys know when we see the idiot that just hit 3 cherries or 5 Walking Dead and won $19 and starts going,
it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Going crazy that we say,
and it's just this
thank God,
exhibitionism. I'm the most important person.
Thank
in the
God
universe.
I'm not with her.
I go see the Le Rev show, the new
The one I got this thing for here.
Correct, and I went and saw it Monday night. The reboot of Le Rev. I'm not sure if the right word would be repetitively spectacular or spectacularly repetitive. And what I mean by this is after you've seen, now you may get into this, but after you've seen the 385th French Canadian girl in a bathing suit dive into a pool of water, it gets a little old. And it's funny because the auditorium is beautiful. The staging is magnificent. It's an amazing technical marvel. The show, I give it a C minus, and here's what I mean by that grade. You're paying $125 for the regular price, and it's of course discounted, but it's still a first A-list kind of a show. And a lot of the O shows are repetitive. You're used to the same acrobats and the same acts and what have you.
Except for Beatles Love.
I agree there are exceptions. O is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Mystere was very good.
Danny Gans is one of the best shows ever.
No, we're talking about yes.
Cirque type shows.
So we're talking about Cirque shows, and Le Rev qualifies.
It's not a Cirque show.
Yes, I agree. But it's a Cirque type show.
Well, the guy that created it was the guy that created Mystere.
I saw the first week when it opened in 2006 or 7, whatever year it was. I saw that first week, and I was like, the problem is I'd just seen O, so it can't compete with that first great impression.
What's that noise? Is that
anyway? So I go see Le Rev, and I would say, and I was trying to figure out, is it me or is it Memorex? Is it me or is it the show? Have I changed, and maybe I'm just so hard to please?
No, just we've grown up in Vegas. We've seen it all.
It just wasn't.
It's hard to entertain us locals. We've seen it all. They're going to have to show us a 5-legged cat. They'll have something. You know what I mean?
Speaking of that,
where's Juniper?
Where's Juniper?
Where's our Juniper?
She's not on strike.
First time she hasn't been on the show.
Yeah, I wonder if one of you guys let her out.
Is she boycotting the show because we were talking bad about waitresses, girls?
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, you know what, Brian? Let's do our last thoughts,
all right,
and then wrap it up because we covered a lot of topics here that we could cover on a specific show. Right? We could do a whole show on cocktail waitress outfits, or the casino screamer, or the demographics of video games. But I think for this show, I think we should go have some more beer and have the party.
I'm definitely game on that. So
All
what's the question or wrap up thought?
Brian, final thought. No final thought from Brian. Looks like Brian's frozen. Okay.
He's frozen in time.
Nolan, final
By the way,
thought.
I freeze you.
Oh, we lost Brian.
By the way, I love this. This is
on Vegas.
Here we go.
I'd say I don't have the Vegas.
Oh, no, he's there. Nope. And no. No, we don't have you, Brian. Okay, we're going to have to...
we had some crazy man in there in the upper left-hand
Let's go, Nolan.
window.
Final thought.
All right, so my thought is this on the issue about cocktail waitresses, sexual harassment, and essentially the Me Too movement in Las Vegas. I think that's important, first of all, for each side in this debate discussion to listen to each other. That's important. It's important to listen, okay? And keep an open mind. And we have to recognize that America and the world is a changing place. It is not the Rat Pack anymore. It's not Southwest Airlines where you're walking down the aisle and getting slapped on the ass with hot pants. This is not the America and not the world we live in. And there are a lot of, the cocktail waitress that serves you your double shot or whatever is more likely to have a couple of kids at home than be some hot girl that wants to go back to your room. Okay? This is not, again, we have to realize that we are a changing society, a changing culture. And I would say a changing culture for the better. And I think it's incumbent upon us as males, most of the people listening to my voice are male, to recognize how great we've had it for the last, since maybe the caveman days. We've had it pretty goddamn good for the last 8,000 years. Pretty good.
Right.
Right? So let's cut the other side a little slack.
Well, listen.
Let me finish. Let's cut the other side a little bit of slack for maybe, they went overboard. Oh, they're so wrong. Gee, we've had it really good in this country, in this world, as white men who were able to enjoy and have all the advantages that go with who we are. We've had it really good. And am I going to slam the other side for maybe going overboard or maybe doing this wrong or we don't like the way they say? No. If anything, we probably deserve a little bit of pushback, okay? So when I say let's have a discussion, let's have a debate, let's have it fairly. Let's listen to each other, and let's cut each other a little slack.
No, well, look, I grew up in this town. I think that Las Vegas has the classiest, best waitresses in the world. I've never, ever gotten, I don't know what these guys do. I know guys are pigs, and they do all this. I've never gotten out of line. I've never been disrespected by a cocktail waitress here. I think that the service in Las Vegas, anywhere I've gone to get a drink, to get anywhere, has always been A+. They've always been classy, friendly, never out of line. I don't get it. I don't get these guys that pinch them or say, that's why it's hard for me to relate. These girls, they deserve respect. They're very good at what they do, and but unfortunately, guys are pigs. That's just the way it is.
Guys are pigs. I think we'll all agree in general. Of course, current company excluded. Guys are not pigs. Brian, do we have you back for one last closing thought? It's a thought of silence.
We're going to have Brian do sign language one of these days.
Yeah.
For those of you who are deaf in our audience, we can see the
he's going to write it on there.
Right.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up then, and we'll be back with you next week. Don't forget, next Friday, Fifth Street Sports Soccer at 1 p.m. Pacific time.
All football Friday and football Saturday.
Football Friday and football Saturday will be lots and lots of NFL
Yeah.
for you. I hope you enjoyed the show. For me, Nick, along with Frank and Nolan and Brian, we wish you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you.